The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of our guests and do not represent the views of any of the mentioned studios.
Hello, and welcome to this episode in the BINS&BYTES Roundtable podcast series. I'm Phillip Roberts, founder of the BINS&BYTES community and a video gameplay capture artist for the past 20 years. Join me now as I discuss with 5 community members the advanced techniques for video gameplay capture.
You either break the game or you break yourself a little bit because it just won't work.
It often is more friction between the creative and the capture teams.
And it reminds me of the old days when I used to shoot documentaries that you just need to get it soon and it needs to look good, it needs to be great, it needs to be well lit, it needs to be well framed. It just needs to work for the story.
And I think that, maybe if you have too much tools at first, you don't play the game that much and maybe it's not the best for capturing.
Once there's client buy-in, it's a lot harder to walk away from an idea.
So we taped down the mouse to the table so we could move the scroll wheel without any movement.
In the old office, we had
we all saw the pain in his eyes.
And that took 3 full days.
We pan very quick as we're also traveling and you just get sideways as it's rolling and exploding. I think it was like 275 takes.
And I'm listening to you and I'm like, why am in that? Why did I say yes to that project?
Today we're going to be looking more into the advanced techniques of gameplay capture, and with me I have 5 members of the BINS&BYTES community. Maybe, Josh, you could start by introducing yourself to the viewers.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Josh Marland. I've been working in game capture for coming up to 10 years, working on a range of AAA up down to indie, for the same company, which is Fire Without Smoke, based in London. Mainly focusing on in-engine, in-game capture.
Fantastic. Nice to have you here. Dominic, what about yourself?
Hi, I'm Dominic Jovina. I'm an associate creative director and a gameplay capture director at GNet Agency in Los Angeles.
Good to have you here. Steve, maybe you could introduce yourself, please.
Well, I'm Steve. I used to work in the music industry during 10 years. It's been 6 years. I work in the video game industry now. I'm a trailer artist. I used to work at Ubisoft and Evil Empire. And I started my company 1 year ago, which is called the Guillotine Chic. And we are specialized in trailer for video game.
Thank you. And Jojo?
Hi, I'm Joan Vicente. People usually call me Jojo. I come from Catalonia. My background is cinematography. I got a master's in cinematography and I used to be gaffer, light and camera related for a bit. And at some point, someone said, would you like to bring those skills into video games? Like, that sounds fun. And for the last 7 years, I've been making trailers with For Fire That Smoke, where I'm a capture manager and also like senior cinematic artist.
Good to have you with us. And Jeremy, what about yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeremy. Been working at Crytek for 5 years. Well, coming up 5 years. Started as a game capture artist, learned the engine, do some cinematics, and now I'm a technical supervisor, but still work mainly with game capture and cinematics, some 2D stuff when required. Basically, a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. Thank you. And good to have you with us again. Let's go into the basics of the craft first, and let's just talk about how we actually get a signal out of the computer or the handheld device that we're capturing from, and any tips and tricks you could have for anyone else that comes along. Me personally, I like to use a capture card or a Ninja system. I like to have 2 HDMI signals coming out of the PC, one going to the capture device and one going to the monitor rather than daisy chaining. And therefore I clone the monitors that I have. This was really important when working on racing games where you had to have refined timing for everything without any lag or delay. And these are the sort of things that have stuck with me and I continue with, but I know there's many different ways to capture the gameplay signal. Let's start again with you, Josh.
Yeah, sure. We've been sort of Atomos purists since the day I started. We've never really used anything else. All the way from like the Shoguns back in the day to I think we're using Ninjas now. I've got Ninja Ultra sat in front of me. Yeah, but we've never cloned. We've always just used the pass-through and never really encountered many problems. Very, very smooth. We end up going through a lot of them. We've used quite a lot over the years. They don't seem to like being on for a whole day of capture. They get quite warm, but they do the job really well. And being able to just eject the drive and immediately start uploading is really useful. And it just takes the load off the machine itself.
And what codec are you using when you're capturing?
We usually ProRes 422.
Excellent. And the file sizes must be quite large then?
Yeah, 4K 60 footage takes up quite a lot of space. So yeah, multiple backup drives, everything getting pulled on the server. Yeah, transfer times can be a little bit difficult to manage sometimes, but yeah, just means you be more precise with your shots, make them shorter.
One of the drawbacks of the Ninja is that you have an SD drive that you're capturing onto, then you take it out and put it onto the main system, I guess. You're running it and copying it onto a media drive. Does that interfere with your workflow, or do you have multiple SD cards that you then just put in the next one?
Yeah, we generally will have two drives. So we'll just shoot with one, swap it out, and then while that one's uploading, put the other one in and just keep shooting. I'd
really wish there was a way that they would just be able to be linked straight to the hard drive of a media system rather than the disk swapping. But it's
you can do that with Blackmagic HyperText, I think, because you can. They're more like a rack mount because they're made for like studio solutions, like TV studios, and technically you should be able to just send. You'd be able to record, then encode it to like proxies and bring it to a server.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's like a dream kind of setup because you just record it and it just does it for you and the editors can get it, and that would be amazing.
Yeah. I guess, Jojo, you're the same sort of setup as Josh, working at the same company.
Yeah, we've been using Atomos for the longest time, and we daisy chain them. Because also the cool thing of the Atomos is that you don't need to really set it up. It takes whatever signal it's outputting from an HDMI, it will set up the Atomos. So if you're setting 60, 30, 24 FPS, the Atomos will recognize it. You only need to give it the format that you're recording to, and it does the rest. And you can also get like time code and metadata, which is sometimes useful when you want to date things.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that won't appreciate that who haven't been around long enough to know the problems of getting signals out at different frame rates for capture from the previous times of NTSC and PAL. So, Steve, how do you capture?
Well, it depends, actually. When I was at Ubisoft, I used the Ninja also, because at this time, maybe the GPU was less powerful, I think. So it was better to separate the capture card and the game. But now I work a lot on smaller game, like, Dead Cells or the Rogue Prince of Persia. It's not that greedy. So now I use OBS. Now I tried a lot of different capture software, like Action or the NVIDIA one. But now I'm just on OBS.
What are your OBS settings?
I still am using a H264.
And even though we work at the same company, Jeremy, I know you have a different approach to capture most of the time, and you have favorite workflows. Maybe you could just tell us a bit about your favorite workflow.
Well, favorite is a bit too much because it's not per se favorite. It's just ease of use and quickness. When I started, it was the Ninjas because that's the way they used to do it because of Phil. Obviously, it has its benefits, but having to transfer all the big files at the end of the day, going through everything, doing this, and it's a lot of. Technically we should anyway, but preparing your shots, and we didn't really have a lot of capture people, so you're dealing with people that don't really capture usually, having to explain what to do. I have a lot of takes, so it's a lot of files. At the moment, I switched to just ShadowPlay, but with AV1. After checking like the difference with ProRes, there's a difference with details if you pause it. In movement, you're not going to notice it. It's going to get uploaded to YouTube. I really don't really think there's such a noticeable difference to offset the ease of use of it. But I wouldn't use it without AV1, really. And we don't need to be very color accurate, so I don't think it matters as much. But it mainly just comes from the way I started doing stuff for a quick turnaround, because I could just jump in, do stuff that I didn't really need to have a plan. I know my outline of what I needed to capture, just go in and just start recording for the whole time. And then I can just cut out the parts that ended up being really good, and it works great.
Yeah, and the AV1 codec is a very powerful codec, and one of the more modern codecs that we're having as well, which has really improved over the years.
I agree. For master-wise, master files, it's not the best, but honestly, it doesn't lose that much detail in motion. It's noticeable if you look frame by frame, next to each other. Overall, though, for me, the upsides of just the ease of use and quickness of it offsets the time I lose with transferring huge files nonstop.
You also touched on the subject of color accuracy as well, because when I started, I was obviously in racing games and working with Formula One brands as well, where color accuracy had to be really spot on. When you get to Ferrari Red and you're in a 422 workflow, you can start to notice the difference after a couple of copies. So 444 was able to hold all the information that I needed, and that was one of the things that brought me to that workflow. And it's been a compromise really for me to go to 422, but it pays off for a lot of the stuff that we're doing, even though we try to visually get the game as accurate as possible in our workflow. There's that aspect to it.
Actually, it's interesting because recently I had to edit a trailer with different shots that each came from different trailers. I remember I recorded one with the Ninja and another one with OBS, and I noticed a big difference between the shot actually on the color accuracy.
Okay, in which way? Towards which systems, and what were the differences?
First of all, I need to say it was on the raw Prince of Persia, which is a very colorful game. So it doesn't really matter, like you said on for example, a Formula One game, which is maybe very realistic, and you need to have a very strong color accuracy. So on this project, it was not a big problem. But I think the Ninja Atomos on the basic settings is making the color very strong. I will say that the saturation is maybe a little too high, and maybe OBS is a little too low. So both shots side by side, you had a very kind of big leap on that.
Yeah. And we also get the same when we're working with cinematic shots that are coming out of the engine as JPEGs, and then mixing that with ProRes 422. You have to always do a grade to make sure that those colors match. Dominic, what about you? How's that capture set up?
I mean, it's very similar to what everyone else has been mentioning. Ninjas are pretty much the bread and butter of capture these days. So that's definitely one of our major tools in our toolbox. I would say one thing that Josh brought up that was very important is heat management with the Ninja, especially with the amount of time that we're using them and keeping them on, and especially because most of the time they're being used as a monitor throughout the entire day. Even if you're not capturing, I have it up, I have it on, and it's passing through the image. So those can get really hot, especially in Los Angeles. It gets really warm.
On that, I do remember a heat wave in London where, ironically, I was using a Ninja Inferno who would overheat halfway through the day. So what was the solution? We had spares, so I had actually two Ninjas. So halfway through the day, I would put one out of the window and then use the other one.
I remember that day very well. I feel like we actually closed the studio by like 3:00 because all of the PCs started shutting down. Like the Atmoses went first, and then the PCs went, and they were just like, just go home.
And also, when you're capturing with high-powered gaming PCs, they put out some heat as it is. So it's a very hot room most of the time when you're working.
So yeah, keeping a good ventilation is so important.
There was a time where we had Megadeth that had 6 PCs underneath and 6 screens on the wall. And I don't know what we were shooting. It was February, but I actually brought shorts to the office so I could wear them under the desk because it was very hot down there.
I apologize for that setup because I made that.
Mega desk was fun though.
Out of interest then, because I've also come from an AJA background, capture card to a media drive directly, which I loved. And I used to have Final Cut Pro, which would take any signal you wanted. You could make the signals up for that, for the frame rates and the sizes. Did anyone else work with capture cards or other devices previously?
I tried the Elgato one recently because I wanted to have a 2 PC setup. I edit on Mac, and obviously I record my gameplay on PC. And I wanted the double setup because I don't know why. I just like to edit on Mac. I love Apple. It's silly, I know, but I love to work on that. So I wanted this setup where I can play on my PC and the gameplay could be directly recorded on the Mac. So I used the last capture card from Elgato, but the thing is that it doesn't fit well with the Mac ecosystem. So I wasn't able to work with it correctly.
That also brings me to another point. I'm a Mac fan, by the way, as well, and I've always tried to edit on Macs. But do any of you actually work on the PCs that you're capturing on? Is it an edit machine and a gameplay capture, or do you all have separate gameplay PCs and then a separate editing system?
We have separate, mainly because we have separate editors. So like I am just capture. I do not edit.
So you pass the footage on to someone once it's done. Yeah,
exactly. Which goes to a separate machine, which used to be Macs. I think we've just made the switch over fairly recently to PC.
And out of interest, how does that work? That in the editor know the sort of footage that you've got? Is it totally out of your hands when it leaves you, and it's just down to the editor, and you've been given a script to capture certain things? And what's that sort of workflow like?
I think it's very job dependent, but generally we'll have a script which we will then turn into a shot list. We'll mark everything up, and then if I'm uploading footage to the server, for example, I can just message my editor, say, hey, I'm sending you shots for shot 7, 12, 18, and etc. Any issue, and then we can talk through it. And especially if we're both in the office, it's super easy to just go over and say, it's this or it's that.
But I find the advantage of being the capture person and the editor is you know what you've captured. And it saves you time in going through going, I know I got that shot and whatever.
And in the other way, when you are editing the project and you realize you're missing a shot, or you can have the perfect shot between two shots, you can just go on the game and record the exact shot you're missing.
But I imagine, Josh, as well, then naming conventions has to be quite important for you guys when you're sending shots across. I know you've got shot numbers and this, but do you put in descriptions of what's in there?
Not in the shot name itself. Shot names are usually dated and timed with the metadata. And that actually does help quite a lot. If an editor comes to you and says, oh, hey, I need X shots. And you're, I shot that yesterday about like 2-ish. And then he can just go straight in and he's got it right there and knows exactly where it is. We've tried a few systems to try and help with this, with adding more metadata in for descriptions. We're still sort of in like the testing phases for those, but they're proving more useful. But yeah, it's something I think it helps as well that we've been working with these editors for such a long time.
Yeah. It's a thing I really enjoy because, you get a lot into that yes and kind of situation because you might have like a very strict idea like, I want to shoot this way, it needs to be edited that way. And you give it to someone that someone just takes it and makes something different. Like, you're like, oh, I didn't think about that, but that's awesome. And we riff a lot on that, like collaborativeness, and sometimes can be frustrating because you don't get what you want, but sometimes you can get such better things that you wouldn't come up with yourself that it can be very refreshing.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, we've been doing that. Like, while I don't edit, I'm still allowed to have very, creative input on the edit, and vice versa for the editor towards me. Like, they can say, "Oh, Joe, what would work well here would be a shot like this." I can just go and get that for them, and then give it over to the edit, and then vice versa. I can say, "Oh, why don't you try moving this around, doing this?" And it's a very collaborative process for us, and it works really well.
Fantastic. Dominic, is it the same for you?
It's actually a unique situation for me because I'm often creative directing and then going off and capturing. And so the editor is a nice like sanity check for me. Since I'm writing and envisioning what it's going to look like and then going off and shooting it, it's very much like I could be in my own little world. If I were cutting it myself, like I would not be up for air. So like handing it off to an editor and being like, here, you make sense of this. Let me know if my ideas actually prove out in the edit or if I need to reassess some things. It's really nice to have that second layer. And then that way I can also get some of those outside ideas so that it's not so dictatorial. You know, I don't want to just be the one vision because then that shuts down other people's creativity. So I tend to, when I pass along footage, I tend to not explain it at all. I used to explain a lot more when I was in a situation where I was handing off footage and people were expecting a certain type of footage. Then I can say like, oh, this shot is for this and this shot is for that. But now that I'm also able to oversee the edit and shape it that way, I like to shoot out my sequences and shoot out the parts of the trailer that I think are going to work, and then see how the editor shapes it and turns it into its own thing. And that way I can like take what I like from that and then nudge it back in the direction that I had originally envisioned it.
Okay. And so that means you don't use any shot lists or anything as the structure when you're capturing? I
tend to make my own shot list, but I don't tend to share them. Okay. So that way I know what I'm going to get and I know what I think I would cut it in what order I would cut it in, but I don't want to provide that so strictly because then it becomes check the box, fill in the blank, and then the editor's not really doing much thinking or creativity on their side. And then that shuts down that innovation.
I'm not a fan of micromanaging.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
As you go on in your profession, you leave behind the practical skills a lot. Like you're handing those over to team members that you're then managing. And what I like about it now in the position I'm in, that others make me look good. And they come up with these ideas that I would never have had. You're kicking yourself. It's like, why didn't I think of that? That's so good. And I really enjoy that. I know our workflow, Jeremy, but maybe you could just explain to the others our workflow at Crytek.
I think it's mainly editors also capture. There's times where obviously you help them out, but they're always sort of involved with the captures. It doesn't happen often where I'm, for example, editing a video and I just get footage from someone. I have it now with the gameplay capture we have now at the moment, but usually I just ask him if he wants to do the video and I just let him do his thing. You sort of know what you want. And then if you need help, you can explain like, oh, I need this kind of shot, that kind of shot. They know what to get, if it works or not, and then speeds up the work because they know if it's going to work in the edit because they're also editing it at the same time. So I feel for us, it works pretty well because it's only 3 people at the moment. So if it's a video, I'm editing it. I'll capture something quick if needed. If I need some other people in there, I can tell them I only need this specific thing or that specific thing. As we're capturing, I know like, oh, this will probably work. Let's do 1 or 2 more for safety. And I throw it in there and I know that, you know, which shot would probably work the best or fit the best or whatever.
And also, I think capture is, I dread to say it, it's quite cheap because you can just get in, get the shot, see how it works. Where if you're making a cinematic shot, that's taking time to get the animations in place, there's cameras working, fine-tuning, but jumping in and just capturing, getting those shots, coming out, see if it works, doesn't quite work, get back in. And I say that with a caveat that sometimes games take time to get back to those shots. AIs don't perform as you wanted when you're in that shot. Something doesn't render correctly when you're there getting that shot.
So I was going to say on that yeah, it's very easy to jump in a game, just put character doing things, move camera, and you can shoot full sequences very quickly. But the thing that's very expensive are reshoots. when you need to reshot a shot and then you just need to align like everything the way it was and get the AI to do the same thing, that can be very taxing.
And that brings me on to debug tools, really. Do you have debug tools put into the games when you're capturing that would help you with resets and for easy placement of AI?
Oh, that's such a game dependent / like a client dependent thing, because we get many builds and they range from, you have a very, very, very deep debug system. You can control everything, even to the point that you can spawn a character and apply some physics to an XYZ direction. Like we've even had like that amount of level of control to, you just can have the game. Maybe you can pause it on the Unreal Debug camera and just make it work that way. So I think that one of the fun parts of what we do is how much can you do and how much creativity can you have with when you don't have much control on things.
You're more on a documentary approach of this is what we have, how can we capture it in the best light?
It really depends on how much tools, because sometimes you can do full setups and you can have replay tools. You can have like editors for RTSs where you can do your own stories, and that way you can just actually make like full scene sequences, but then you can shoot them in marketing camera, which is nuts. But sometimes you just have the game with the minimum debug of posing and maybe just changing the weather and a camera, and just you need to make the most cinematic trailer you can with that.
And when you get that, is that sometimes gives you more freedom? When you get more choice, sometimes it confines you.
I do, in a weird way, I do like it, because I feel like some of the nicest or most interesting shots I've got, they've been in games that they had very limited debug control. And it reminds me of the old days when I used to shoot documentaries, that you just need to get it soon, and it needs to look good, it needs to be great, it needs to be well lit, it needs to be well framed. It just needs to work for the story. And there's something about not having too many tools that it just makes you be creative and be fun. Whereas when you got loads of tools, there's a lot of, and I can do this, and I can do that. And then you get lost.
Yeah. And the tools that we have, Jeremy, maybe we can just go over some of those. They have really saved us time, because there used to be a time that we would go in and capture the game. We want to jump through a window, and we jump through, smash the window, it breaks, but then something happens on the other side, the AI isn't there, or we get shot, or we stumble. So we need to do it again. So we'd have to load back into the game to reset the whole game, get to that window. The windows are randomly spawned, so it's a different window this time. It doesn't match the previous shots that we're trying to do. So we then have to keep coming back in and keep changing. But that's all changed because devs have been involved with us now, Jeremy, haven't they?
I mean, the windows, I think, are still random. And I agree with Jojo that it also added a lot of better shots for better or worse. Back when, we didn't have as much debug tools when it started. Because you have a location you think is cool, you try the shot, something messes up, and to save time, you're just like, well, let's try it somewhere else or from a different angle or whatever. And then that shot turns out way better than what you had in mind before. So it can work really well to be more limited. But at the moment, they worked on all the debug tools. We had to fly everywhere on the map, and now we can just see where all the other players are. Like we pull up an actual map, you just can click on there to go somewhere. You can see where the actual boss is, where the points are that you need to find. You can spawn in literally anything that you want. It has improved a ton, and it does make it easier, especially with showcasing legendary skins, because when we die in game, the weapon gets dirtier over time the more you die. You're trying to showcase a nice skin, so having a ton of dirt on there, can't really get away with it. So now I could just drop another version of it, pick that one up, and it's clean.
Yeah, I can remember moments where it's like, kill me so I can take your gun.
Don't remember which game it was, but the character would get dirty next to explosions, and before reset, we had someone shooting a grenade launcher next to you, so before the shot, you were dirty.
Brilliant.
Yeah, sometimes you just find game mechanics and you use them for the trailer, because it's the easiest way to reset things.
About the debug tools, I think it depends a lot of how much you are involved on the project. I mean, if you have one trailer to make for one game and it's just a one shot, it's not the same than when you're working on a game and you have to do the reveal trailer, the launch trailer, and we'll have a lot of DLC and updates, and you will have to make 20 trailers on it. When it's the case, I think that talking to the dev and saying to them that you don't want to sweat every time you have to make a trailer, and that you need now some debug tools because you will have to make a lot of them, is very important, actually.
And you've had it from both sides now, Steve, where you were part of an in-house team at Ubisoft. Now you're an agency working with multiple clients. Do you then find it more restrictive on the debugs that you get? Because I guess before you could go to the devs and say, look, could you try and add this if you have time?
Actually, it depends. Because when you work on the team, at first you say, hey, I would love to have that. And then at some point, the producer came to you and said, stop asking them some stuff because they have a game to do, actually. But it's easier to talk about the debug tools because you in-house. It was very something important when I worked at Evil Empire, because Dead Cells and The Rogue Prince of Persia were two games with a lot of update and DLC. So obviously we needed a lot of good tools to be able to capture and to edit some trailers. Now it's different. But the thing is that when you are an agency, you don't have the same relationship with the client. They are actually paying for a trailer and they want it to be good, So usually when you say, I will need that kind of tool and that kind of tool, they are very, usually they do the best to give them to me.
And I would say the comment on that, like fewer tools can be good in its own way. I think the thing that is revealing is just the reducing the friction between having an idea for a shot and getting a shot. When you have no tools and it's just like, I just need to break camera and just shoot it and try it, your time to shot, like time from getting in the build to getting a shot up, can be as low as like a minute. Whereas when you get bogged down by a lot of tools and they get very complicated, it can be very tempting to tweak all the sliders. And then you spend 15, 20 minutes on a single idea for a shot that might not end up working. So I think that's one of the things, is just reducing that friction. That's one thing that I love with the tools that I request when I do request them, is sort of a set starting point for the camera when it comes to, like, I like this speed, I like this interpolation, I like this look speed. Having those, being able to set them quickly, so that way you can break cam and get shots with very little friction. And I think that can get you a lot of really good shots really quickly.
And so far, we've been talking about capturing live games, like we're going in, playing the game, capturing it. Do any of you have replay systems or have worked with replay systems that the game provides for the capture? And do you find that useful?
I think one of the coolest replays I ever remember, it was in Riders Republic, because you could record yourself it's like a snowboarding, like a BMX downhill kind of game. It's very cool, but also...
I was working on Riders Republic, actually.
Yeah.
During 1 year and a half.
Yeah, I think we'll probably end up working together down the line at some point.
Probably, yeah. You also got the replay tool, you could record your trails and then you can offset them in time.
This was the big thing on with this game, actually, because I think that I made a lot of trailers on it, and most of them, when you have 24 players on the background, I was the only player, actually. Played every single character myself, and then you could edit them and retime them and resync them. So it was very, very cool tool.
I remember that tool was born out of a tool for Steep, like its sort of predecessor.
Yeah, exactly.
That was, whereas I remember the one for Riders being sort of inbuilt in the editor, the one for Steep was a notepad doc that you would have open, and you would have to add it in to a notepad doc, which would then go into the config file to activate those replays, and you would have to type out all of your timings, and it worked. It was hacky, but it worked. And then I think that evolved and developed into the in-house one, which worked super well, super useful.
It was so much fun just calculating in your mind. So this one's just going to be trace and using this by doing this path and that path, and they're going to cross, and you're thinking the shot, just planning it that way. It's just, you're going to do it backwards. You do the tracing first and then you do all the action. And it was a very fun way to work.
And recording splines is sometimes a really good way. We used to do it with racing games as well. So the main car would go around. You could then see the spline when you were racing. So you could try and get the next car close to it. And then obviously with racing games, the replay cameras you have for capture are fantastic. So we had used to set those sort of shots up and then just record the replay camera that is an in-game feature. And they worked fantastically well for that.
This is actually a tool I have also because I'm working on the Windblown. And this game also has this kind of replay tools, which is actually very cool because when you can manage your camera on the game you just made, it's very cool. You don't have to be several people working on it, you know?
Yeah. And I played on a battle game where we were in an arena and you could record the session and then afterwards move the camera around to where you wanted it on the replay, and you knew this character was going to come around the corner at this point and interact with this, and you could place those shots so well. Sadly, we couldn't rewind. We'd have to let the whole thing play through one more time, and if we messed up that shot, we'd have to wait for it to come back around in the replay.
There's always a problem. There's never just as like...
It was the same thing with us with Ace Combat 7. Because we were using the replay, but you couldn't rewind, so you had to just see the replay again and pause it right before, and then just get the camera out and try to catch up and be fast enough to follow up a plane, which it's hard because they're very fast.
Yeah. And Dominic, do you have replay systems in some of the games that you're receiving?
It's less common. I feel like splines are common for me. Pre-programming camera moves is possible, but we still do that kind of in a live environment. Doing replays, I would say it's something I've done before, but yeah, it's very time consuming because most of the time you have to run a lot of the game without shooting anything. You know, speaking back to the time to shot, like replays are probably the highest where you go, okay, I'm playing this mission or doing this thing for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I get a chance to get shots out of that. And sometimes those replays are lost to time. I've worked on a few games that are like that, where the games update and all your replays die. And like, that's a real sad feeling when you're working all day on some stuff and you get a good bank of replays and get the shots that you could get out of them and then can never go back.
And I imagine a lot of you are just capturing the game from the first person or the player's point of view, but you also do some cinematic type shots, I guess, to get third person shots or different movements in there with debug cameras.
I would say the majority of what I do is broken camera, not player camera. So not first person.
Okay.
So it's just interesting that you call it broken camera, because we call it marketing camera.
Yeah, I'm marketing camera.
Marketing camera is common on the dev side. They tend to say that. But yeah, I tend to say broken cam just because it's broken off the character. I'm also not sure if that's a U.S. thing, because I know that I'm one of the rare U.S. representatives here now.
I think I've got a new rabbit hole seeing how other people just name things in this industry.
We have debug. Mainly it's a debug camera, and then we call it cinematic because we've tried to do something to it and enhance it. But my question really is, how do you control those cameras as well? Because often when you're using a debug camera, it's for debugging. It's for the QA team to quickly go around, or the devs to go around, look at something. The movement's normally quite fast and erratic. But when you want it for trailers, you're looking for smoothness, you're looking for control, dampening, and all these things that sometimes get added for the team when they're capturing within a production. But how do you control your, let's say, broken cameras or debug cameras or marketing cameras?
Basically, when he was talking about Riders Republic, actually you can put your sequence in Motion Builder and you can create the camera and you have a key point, basically. So it was, you didn't have that?
No, interesting. No, because we had because we had like a halfway engine, not the full engine. So we're running the game from that engine, and then we could get the marketing camera. So we're running the game and then running the trails, and we get a marketing camera that we could just move with the controller.
Basically, there was a plugin called Theater. You put your sequence in Theater, and then you plug this plugin in Motion Builder, and we were able to create some real camera with key point, etc.
And you're exporting it back to the game then, are you?
You're just from Theater exporting the sequence as a video after that.
I can think of 2 people in the office who would be thrilled and horrified to learn that information.
I would have loved to have that, because all the cameras we did were hand operator with one of these.
If you need some people to work on Riders Republic, I have an agency now, so don't hesitate. I know the game, actually. So.
But that's the thing that I find is at the end of a very long project, you then talk to the QA team at the end. They go, but why didn't you use this? And it's like, I didn't know that existed. Why
You've been asking me now at the end. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And that's happens multiple times for me. Mm-hmm. But how do you then, if you're not using it with the spline system, how else are you controlling cameras?
With a pad, basically. I try to make the beta shot as I can, and then if I don't, I just restart it until I have it.
And do you use any damper rings on your control pad to slow them?
I have this one, which is the Microsoft. I know it's not the best one, but you can change the, how to say it in English, you can make it
joystick.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the joystick. I know that one. Actually.
I wasn't sure.
But I was talking about the resistance. It can be rough or very smooth. You can change that, and depending on how the camera reacts, I will change it.
Oh, okay. Because I know a lot of people buy the rubber rings and put them around the controller, so it gives it a bit more dampening to them.
Yeah.
Anyone else then with controllers? Is this the way that you normally do your cameras?
95% of everything I shoot is with a controller. We've been Xbox pad since I started. Like, the amount we've gone through is crazy. But recently we have made a bit of a switch to using the Ghillie Kit KK3s, which are really used like same form factor as an Xbox pad, but with the added benefit of each of the sticks has got its own individual 3-step sensitivity. So if we do have a debug camera that doesn't have a particularly low or high sensitivity, we can up or lower each stick, which is super, super useful. That's come in handy the past year, especially with stuff like, you've just got the Unreal debug camera, which is fine, but it doesn't go very slow. So if you try to get something detailed or something that's, it's just a bit too quick, you can just drop the sensitivity on the stick in the controller itself, and it's been really good.
I can remember getting those panning shots or those rotations around the character that I'm going, like, I've got to keep this pressure on, don't make
exactly that. Like, yeah, you develop very sensitive thumbs, I guess.
Yeah. Anything other than the control pads for controlling cameras?
I'm working with the Stream Deck for most of my captures. I'm using the Plus one,
Ooh, cool.
because it had wheels, and basically you can, set up everything you want on that button. But recently I found out that I can manage the depth of field or the focus or stuff like that directly on the wheels, So it became very comfortable to work with that, because usually they put some settings on all the button of the pad, and I'm always making mistakes, like, oh no, it's not that way, this is this way, and with the Stream Deck Plus, it's very easy. When I want to zoom in, zoom out to change the depth of field or it's very, very easy.
Yeah, we used a MIDI controller for the same reason. So it had the pots that you can control, but it also had sliders as well. So we could do smooth offsets. We could do smooth forward focus on elements with an in-game camera.
I think one of the more interesting ones we've done recently-ish, past couple of years, was we were working on Undisputed, the boxing game. And the character artist who was working on that worked out that we could basically create a virtual camera, the engine, which was very cool. So he hooked up an old iPhone and put it onto a shoulder rig and basically cleared a space out in the office, and then would record, ties in with the replays actually, would record a fight, then run a replay and then put himself in there as a cameraman in the 3D space and shoot it like an actual boxing match. So yeah, we just had him dipping around the office for a couple of weeks, like with this fake ring that he built himself in the corner. And it looked incredible. It worked super well. It really went for that gritty, realistic, sort of style we were going for. But yeah, that was one of the more interesting experiments that we tried, and it worked incredibly well.
Yeah, and we've used virtual cameras for some of our cinematic scenes as well, just to get that handheld feel into it. And one of the best debug cameras that we did have was an actual in-game camera that could work as if it's on a track and run smoothly with these sliders, but you could do a switch and then it's handheld and it's got the inertia of a handheld cameraman. And when we were working on a war game, to have that in there and that action and dirt coming up on our lens as we were running around works so well. And I'd waited years to get something like this as a dream capture camera system.
Dominique earlier said something about having too much tool, for the debug. And it made me think of something is that when you are capturing a game, you're supposed to play the game and actually eventually be good at the game. The more you play the game, the more you become good at it. And I was just thinking about that, because when you have a game and you don't have debug tool, you're just playing it. So you're becoming good at it. And the more you are good at it, you can think about some different type of shots, And sometimes I realize that when I have too much debug tools, I'm not playing the game that much. And it became, I don't have the same ideas when I'm working on it, On the Rogue Prince of Persia, for example, it's a combat game. It's a 2D combat game. But you can do a lot of choreography with it. You have the whirlwind, we can jump on the enemy, you can throw some stuff, make some cool action. So sometimes when you become very, very good at the game, you can imagine some very cool choreography and you will do it as a capture artist. But eventually I had the debug tools, but before that I had to play the game a lot. And I think that, maybe if you have too much tools at first, you don't play the game that much, and maybe it's not the best for capturing. But I don't want the dev to hear that. They should still making tools for us.
But coming from an in-house team and working on a game, you've got a time period of probably 6-7 months that you're tied to one game. So you are playing it, you get to know it well, and you don't necessarily have to be good at playing the game, but you have to be good at understanding the game.
Yeah.
Do you find that changes now that you're an agency and you're receiving multiple games that you have? Do you need to set time aside to play the game a lot before you capture?
Well, the difference now is that I don't work alone. I have several people working with me, and each people have sometimes their preferences of the kind of game they like, So if it is a city builder, for example, I have some people who like that kind of game. So usually they will be very comfortable working with that kind of game. They will understand them very quickly. Personally, I really like game like Dead Cells or the Rogue Prince of Persia. I like 2D action platformer. So when you get that kind of game to me, it will be very easy for me to play them. And this is the way I work now as an agency. I try to find the best people to work on the different kind of game.
And so far, we've only talked about single player games, but do you also work on multiplayer games?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
What's the biggest difference besides the fact that you then got many more actors in the scene?
I think it's that mainly. Like, it turns you from a capture artist into a sort of like a pseudo director. It's not just thinking about what my perspective is for this shot. With a multiplayer game, it then becomes, you need to account for everyone else's movements. So you're not just drawing up one plan in your head of what you want to do. You're drawing up 4, 5, 6, 7, however many people you've got.
But the problem that you can get then as well is when you've made so many plans and you telling so many people to be in so many places at the right time, it can feel staged.
Yep.
And so I think the real challenge in capturing multiplayer games is to make it feel as real as possible. But if you capture it real, you've got so much footage that is not going to be used.
For quite a long time when I was with Fire Without Smoke, did a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, a lot of it, couple of years of it. And we found that there's a really fine line between staged and realistic, because if you just watch a random match of something like Rainbow Six, it's a mess. It's very unreadable. If you don't know what you're looking at, if you're trying to sell something, it's quite difficult to determine the elements. So we found that with any multiplayer game, it's a very fine line of showing off how chaotic this can look and how cool it can look, but dialing it back just enough that it's readable and clear, but not dialing it back enough that it looks completely fake.
And also that brings me to the fact of when you're playing a game and you're playing keyboard and mouse, you're erratic. It's great when you're the player, but as a viewer of that, even if you're in the room when someone's playing, it can really just give you motion sickness sometimes. So we often play with a dampered down mouse as well, which when anyone comes in from QA to try and play the game, it's like, I don't like it like this.
It's a nightmare in the beginning.
Because I introduced this to you, I think.
Before I started, I played the game for like 1,500 hours. And then you start as a capture artist and Phil was like, well, you need to have mouse moving on. And then all your movements that you usually do are like and delayed and they keep going after you've already stopped the mouse. And I was like, what is happening? I can't hit any shot. Like, what's going on? It took me a while to really get used to that and not make it look too janky, because even like, it's smooth, but you can see that you're sort of overshooting and going back to get a shot. And it's not as bad now, but it took a while to really get used to that. And I understand why, especially for people that don't actually know the game. Like, so when you have like a new game or something, you're pushing it to people that you want to advertise the game to. If they don't know the game, having the really jittery shots and fast flick is really jarring. I toned down the smoothing a bit because I don't know. I feel like if it's too much, like the existing audience is going to be like, oh, this looks so meh. And if it's too fast and don't attract new players, so I dialed it down a little bit. So it's still there, but it's not, too much where it's off-putting for people that actually play the game.
Because the other way that used to be done was the fact that you used to play with a controller, but there's a huge difference between a keyboard and mouse game. And it is just a case of getting that balance of representing the game, but yet giving a visual that is comfortable to watch.
Because also you can tell when you watch a trailer and it's been recorded with mouse and keyboard, you can also see like the steps with the cameras moving. Even like if you're doing like a gameplay session, like you're doing gameplay recording of one player just going through a level, even if it's like a mouse and keyboard game, we'll probably try and do it with a pad because you can get much more smoothness out of it.
Yeah, we still stick with pads. Always.
Because I'm just thinking of that, not just the movement on the horizontal and vertical, but the whole rotation feel is different when you're on a pad compared to a keyboard and mouse.
It is, yeah.
Even when we do multiplayer capture, we get the other guys who they're playing the game to be in the shot. We also prefer them to be playing with gamepad. And sometimes they just come and use to play mouse and keyboard. They need to learn how to play the game with a gamepad. Because you can sometimes tell that someone is just... It's just too WSD or just moving a little bit too erratic, and we kind of want to tame that down if possible.
No, I can understand that the other characters run smoother in their animations if they're being played on a pad. I can understand that for sure. Yep. I'd like to know how you have your multiplayer capture sessions set up. Are you all in one room playing on a system, or are you working remote? How's it working? You're nodding away for all in the one room, Josh and Jojo.
All in the one room, yeah. It's way easier. We tried it once online during lockdown and COVID, and it did not work. It's just, especially for something like a tactical competitive shooter where you need to be super precise. It just wasn't giving commands and making that happen was much more difficult. The way we normally have it set up is we have a room, we have the capture artist with their screen mirrored to a large TV so that everyone in the room can see the camera point of view. So we can just go right, person A, you're over here, person B, you're over here. And it works
That's a
perfectly.
setup that I really like and favour as well, to have one
It's
master
great.
screen that everyone can see and you can point at rather than just saying over there, and they go, where is over there, you know? And
Yeah, and then you have to run around to their machine, which is on the other side of the room, and you're like, no, it's here. But yeah, we said we tried it during lockdown. It didn't work, which then sort of devolved into me shooting multiplayer in my own bedroom with 4 laptops surrounding me, all LAN together, hiring my housemates to come and press buttons for me. It was a good time.
And Dominic, is it the same for you, all in one room?
I tend to stick more towards single player experiences just because that's where my expertise lies. But when I am doing multiplayer stuff, I work remotely and everyone's usually able to communicate. I have sort of found the ways of queuing people in a way that they understand. I think that's part of the thing about these big multiplayer shoots, is making them readable from the perspective of the camera or the first person who's the one recording the cap. I think making those cues so that they know ahead of time what they're supposed to be doing and where they're supposed to be doing it, tend to walk through all of that way before the camera starts rolling. So that way it's just about lining up all the timings.
And Jeremy, you're on a multiplayer game, obviously, for most of your projects. How's it work for you?
I mean, in the old office, we had a
We all
whole
saw the
setup.
pain in his eyes.
It's a very relatable mood right there. Yeah.
You know, in the old office, we had a section with a bunch of PCs, so we would all sit together, and it was nice and easy. Sometimes we'd have someone come in remote, and then you're struggling with separating the audio on the capture machine so that you don't have the person talking on the recording. And now in the new office, there's no space for that really. So we sort of sit together, but because there's so many other people around, you can't just, yell at people loud while they have their headphones on to hear what's going on in the game. So now we still have to sort of find a way to either separate the audio. At the moment, I tried it with OBS, it works, but it's still not as easy as ShadowPlay, and I'm stubborn. So I just tell them what to do. And when I start recording, I just mute myself or deafen myself so I don't hear them.
Yeah, that also brings us then to a technical question of if anyone else is capturing with headset conversations going on and gameplay, what do you do to separate the two?
I generally, because we're shooting with Atmos, I just go into my PC sound settings and say what's going where. So obviously I want the Atmos to record the sound as well. So the game audio will go through the Atmos. Everything else will go through either my headset or my desktop speakers. So I frequently capture when I have music on. Doesn't affect anything because it's a different audio source.
Okay. And Steve, you are an OBS person for capture. Do you have these issues?
No, to be honest with you, I'm working on a multiplayer game right now. We have our first recording session tomorrow, and I'm listening to you, and I'm like, why am in that? Why did I say yes to that project? So we'll see how it goes. I will tell you.
Yeah, I know there's some plugins as well. We used to use Banana at one point that would separate the audios out and allow us to control it a bit better, what was going to what channels. Any tips really for multiplayer capture sessions?
Don't do it.
No, that'd be
That would be the first tip, yeah.
I'd say patience, breathe in, breathe out. You'll be fine. Prep, like going in kind of blind, it's going to be a waste of time. Just really know what you're going for. Have your plan set up. Really, we call them capture systems, the people who just play the game for us. Really just delegate on them and help them set you up. So don't just take all the things on yourself because it gets crazy. So if you empower them to know exactly where they need to be and just to be themselves and help them help you, that also really, really, really helps. Basically anything you can get away from your load, because you're going to be controlling so many bits happening at the same time that it can get a little bit overwhelming.
Let's just take it back to the whole capture process for single player and multiplayer games. What do you do when you have a vision for the shot and the mechanics just don't allow you to get that vision?
Abandon your vision.
The vision
Vision's over. Yeah. Don't force it.
I've been there. Unless you like banging your head against a wall constantly, because I've been there out of stubbornness, don't do it. Find something that works with the mechanics. Or maybe play the game a little bit more and something will spark and you'll get something very cool, but just don't.
Yeah, we found that the more you push against something that isn't meant to work, the more you either break the game or you break yourself a little bit, because it just won't work.
It often is more friction between the creative and the capture teams. It's a lot easier for me to say abandon it because it's my own idea. Most of the time, if I come up with something and it doesn't work, then you just move on. But sometimes if you're in the capture position and there's a creative overhead saying, hey, this is the idea for the concept, you got to make it work. It's not as easy to just say it doesn't work. So that's where it's really important that the capture and the creative teams sort of sync before pitches go out to client, before concepts get written up, before ideas get pitched, because then once there's client buy-in, it's a lot harder to walk away from an idea. And you might end up in a situation where you have to show them, hey, this is what it looks like. This is the idea. This is what it looks like. It doesn't work, but this is what it looks like.
An all too familiar conversation that I have had.
I think there is a sweet spot to find, because when you're making trailers, you are showing a game, but you're not just showing the game as it is. You're trying to make people want to play the game, but you're still supposed to show the game, as it is, and not lie too much about the game. So if you have a very good idea and you can't make it, with the game, then maybe you're making a lie that is too big to be shown, basically. That's something I think. If you can't do it with the game, then don't show it.
No, and I agree. I think honesty is quite important in putting into gameplay trailers, especially with Steam reviews. If someone gets a game that they're not expecting it to be, or they're expecting it to be something else, then that can really hurt the game in its review process as well on online sites. What's your process, or is there a process for getting the money shot, or do the money shots just accidentally happen?
Job to job, like, trailer to trailer, like there's somewhere you're doing exploration and you just stumble across something, or you're just messing about with an idea, and then something happens and you're like, damn, that was really cool. And then you'll spend some time working on that, and that ends up being the final shot of the trailer. Or other times it's a creative's idea who's like, I want this, and you build it, and it takes days or weeks to get this shot to just pop. But there's been many a time where I've done a shot 200, 300, 400 times over the space of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
To really nail it and get that final killer shot. And it's just patience.
I often say as well, the viewer doesn't care that it's taken 200, 300, 400 times to get that shot. They care when it's great, and they'll go, that's brilliant. That is what's helping them to make a decision on buying the game, because often we are the first view of a game.
I think that half of the money shots, usually they are basically made by the dev team of the game. It's in the game. On a 2D action platformer, for example, you have the best weapon with the best VFX on it. And you just use it against the best boss of the game, which has a very cool attack. And you just put those two things together and you have a very cool shot. But it's a 2D action platformer. So it was just made by the team and you just put it in the video, It's very different when you're playing on a 3D, like Riders Republic. A money shot is not the same at all. You have to find the perfect spot in the world. You have to exactly know what you want to show, the framing and stuff, and the lighting and then the tricks that you are making in it. Depending on the game, it's a very different amount of effort to make a money shot.
What's the most ridiculous workaround you've had to do to get that shot for the trailer?
think there was one for Division 2 trailer where we had to do a time lapse, and it had a very comprehensive like debug system. We could just control time of day, and you could use the wheel on your mouse to just make it go, and that was the fastest way to get like a full time lapse while we're moving the camera. So we taped down the mouse to the table so we could move the scroll wheel without any movement.
For an old, this is like during my first or second year with the company. It was a really small indie game. It had no, I think it was a mobile game, but they basically just gave us the entire Unity build. It was a little 2D sort of side-scrolly game, really basic debug, no controller input. So I wanted to just try and do just a really small, really slow pan. And especially because it's a small game, the second you start moving the camera, it's like you've got maybe a tiny bit of left or right leeway before this empty space. And the mouse sensitivities were just, I couldn't do it. So I ended up having to just clear one of our massive desks, turn sensitivity down on my mouse to its lowest, and some other bits, and then basically just clicked the camera, like the viewport camera, and just slowly dragged it all the way across this 2-meter desk in the straightest line I could. And they loved it. They absolutely loved that shot. But that was, silly. But we've done loads. Lutac on thumbsticks and putting a controller on the floor so you can press the second controller with your feet and all sorts of stupid stuff. Whatever works.
What about you, Dominic? Have you had any?
I can't think of anything really crazy rigged up that I've done that to get shots. But I think back to the topic of the sort of money shot, we tend to call them unicorns because they're just like 1 in a million. They just show up out of nowhere. And there's one unicorn in particular that always is burned into my brain. It was in the Elden Ring reveal trailer. And it's such a not important shot in the grand scheme of things. And because I think to Steve's point, he's right, where it's like a lot of the really visually impressive things are done on the dev side. They put these really cool bosses together. They put these cool environments together, these weapons. But in my case, it was just a shot of the hero attacking a guy on horseback, just swinging his broadsword and hitting another guy who's also on horseback.
I know exactly which shot you're talking about. I love that trailer.
Because of the way the shot was made, it was the camera pulling back, focusing on the hero, and the hero hits the enemy just as the enemy enters frame. The only way that was done was just a random fluke completely, because the player is not actually seeing the enemy at all. The player is seeing the same frame that you are. So that they have to blindly swing the sword, and just happened to hit a guy on horseback that one time. Now, I wasn't responsible for that first shot, but I was responsible for reshooting it when they changed the hero's armor. And so, And so I had to go in, and with Ryan Gabriel, shout out, he was teching at the time, capture assisting. He had to get on a horseback, set up the enemy, and then charge him. And we just had to have a mental projection of where we thought the guy would be at any given moment. So that way, when he let go of his sword, the guy would enter frame and he would connect. And that took 3 full days of just that one shot. And ultimately, it's not a very important shot in the trailer. It happens, the trailer continues. It's not like a big stop down moment or anything. But it got in there, it got approved, and then they changed the hero's armor. Yeah, in terms of like the most I've done for a shot, that is up there in the like hundreds of takes, where I would sometimes do it all day and then get a request for something, switch to that, and then just go right back to grinding that one shot until everything was perfect.
And it's those frustrations of nearly being perfect, which makes it.
And so many
worse.
times where I'm like, I got it, I'd pass it over, they'd watch it in the cut, and they'd be like, it's a little different. And I'd be like, back to it.
Like, I'm just getting like PTSD from just the amount of times, like I said, like a unicorn shot's a great way to describe it. But the second you said it, you're like, one of those 1 in a million. You're like, until you have to redo it.
And Elden Ring is one of those games that has like a very in-depth debug. You can control enemies, you can control their pathing, you can set them in animation loops, you can do all kinds of stuff that normally would make a shot like that possible. The problem is, because they're both on horseback, the horse and the rider are two separate AI things, and you can't actually loop them because, you know, they desync just slightly if one of them's on a horse and the horse is riding underneath him, and then they're like, you know, aren't quite connected. You have to do it real. You have to do it for real.
The patience you have.
You've been there, Jojo. You've done the same thing. You've done
We've all
exactly
been there.
that.
Yeah. I spent the day shooting a shot for Just Cause 4, like 2 full working days. Yeah, been there. What was it? It was Rico grappling into a helicopter and doing a barrel roll, and then going past the helicopter, and the helicopter exploding just right when it was doing the barrel roll, so we could just ramp it in slow mo, shooting at 0.1 speed. And it had a very annoying setup process where I had to load the game again to reset the area, spawn the helicopter in place, and it would just hover, and then give myself the mine launcher, because with the cheat we could have infinite mines. So if you wanted to delay an explosion, you shoot 20 mines to the floor and they will explode one after the other one off camera, so you can time the explosion that you want. Attach the correct mine to the helicopter, then use a command to drop all the weapons, and then do it, and then do the camera correctly. It was basically going counter. Brooke was going to camera, just going. We pan very quick as we're also traveling, and you just get sideways as it's rolling and exploding. I think it was like 275 takes.
I don't think people realize that you do put triple figures on the end of your take numbers sometimes for these gameplay trailers.
I very frequently put the game in slow motion just to record the shot and then speeding it up in the editing. Do you all do that or not at all?
Yeah,
In
usually.
most cases, yeah.
No, never.
We've done that for some difficult shots, difficult jumping, shooting, timing shots where you're there. I've also worked on a game that was running at 4K, but it was super sampled. So it was 8K being sampled down to 4K. And it was in a development time where it was very new. I was running at 15 FPS to play this game on the system I had. And then we would speed it back up. But it looked amazing. But you'd shoot something, you'd shoot an arrow, and it'd be going, I really hope I'm going to hit that target. I really hope I'm going to hit that target. And it'd get it, and it's like, this is going to be brilliant as a shot. So I've had it that way. And we have used a time step to sometimes speed up the game to get to the points that we need to get to. I'm taking us back to the most unusual workarounds that you've done. Jeremy, what comes to mind is 2 machines to do a multiplayer game when it's just you.
No, that didn't even come to mind. I mean, the one thing was when I just got hired was the demo function that you didn't even know about, because I was working from the Netherlands still by myself and a 2 PC setup, and I had to do a multiplayer shot, and I just used one character, recorded a demo loop, so the character kept doing the same thing, so I could use the other character to finish the shot. I remember you were really surprised, like, how did you manage that? I had to explain it. But the main thing was, it usually comes from like not having enough people to help out, because everybody was always like working on their own projects and tight deadlines and this and that. The biggest one was creating a whole track view sequence in Engine with character animations and this and that. Like, you couldn't shoot them, you couldn't interact with them, but it was just people that had to run by somewhere while I was sort of stalking them. So I set up a whole track view sequence in Engine, exported that to the game that I could trigger with a hotkey, so I could just constantly trigger that track view sequence to have the guys running past. So I could just get a couple of shots of that till I had the perfect shot from that. I think that's the biggest workaround I've had.
I've also utilized that as well to get a good boss shot without being killed. So you'd have the boss doing his amazing killer movement, and you'd just stand there and then shoot as if you're doing it. But if he would just be completely ignoring you, looping around and taking it that way. And I think ignore player is one of the best debug options that's been put into games.
Yeah,
since
it's great.
started.
It's so useful.
And I'd like to just thank you all for taking part in this episode. It's been really insightful to seeing how everyone else's workflows are there, and that there's quite a lot of common ground that we have with different games from across the world that we work on. And thank you very much for being part of the Bins and Bytes community. It's so nice to have your support.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
And sorry for my bad English during the recording.
Not at all.
It's
No,
fine.
there's not. Now we know you know
Nothing's in
joysticks. We're good.
What more? What? You don't need to know anything else in the capture artist.